let's get right into it. In a world that's just flooded with companies claiming to be green, how do you actually know who's for real? Today, we're pulling back the curtain on ISO 14001. It's the global gold standard that separates real environmental action from just, well, empty talk. We're going to break down what it is, exactly how it works, and why it's pretty much the ultimate tool for accountability.
I mean, it's a huge question, right? You see environmental claims everywhere, but how do you tell the difference between a genuine commitment and just some clever marketing? How does a company actually go from saying they're eco-friendly to having a real, solid system that proves it, day in and day out?
Well, the answer isn't a one-off action or some fancy ad campaign. Nope, it's in a system. A formal, internationally recognized framework that gives a structured and, more importantly, a credible answer to that exact question.
And here it is, ISO 14001. You can think of it as the ultimate playbook for what's called an environmental management system, or an EMS. Now, what's really important to get is that it doesn't tell a company what environmental goals to set. Instead, it gives them a world-class structure for setting those goals, achieving them, and then constantly getting better.
And that right there is the fundamental shift. ISO 14001 moves a company's entire focus. You go from making these random green claims to embedding a culture of environmental responsibility right into the DNA of the company. It's all about building a reliable process, not just making promises.
So how does this whole framework actually work? Let's take a little peek behind the curtain. We're going to walk through the key requirements, they call them clauses, using a pre-certification checklist as our guide. This is the exact tool a company uses to figure out if it's truly ready for an official audit.
Okay, so every strong system has to start with a solid foundation. Clause 4, context, is all about self-awareness. The organization really has to ask itself, what environmental issues impact us, and who cares about how we're doing, from regulators to the local community. Then you've got Clause 5, leadership. And let me tell you, this one is non-negotiable. Without genuine buy-in from the very top, an EMS is it's going to fail. Leadership has to set the policy and, even more importantly, drive the entire culture.
So, with that foundation in place, now it's time to draw up the blueprint. Clause 6, planning, is where the company gets specific. It identifies environmental risks, legal obligations, and turns them into actual, concrete objectives. Then Clause 7, support, makes sure they have all the right tools for the job, providing the resources, making sure the staff knows what they're doing, and keeping all the important documents organized and accessible.
And this is where the plan meets reality. Clause 8, operation, is all about the day-to-day grind. It's about putting controls in place for any process that has an environmental impact. Could be anything from managing waste to controlling emissions. It also means you've got to be prepared for when things go wrong, like an accidental chemical spill.
Finally, the framework closes the loop. Clause 9, performance evaluation, is basically about checking your work. You monitor, you measure, you do internal audits. Is the system actually doing what you said it would do? And that leads directly into Clause 10, improvement. When you find something that isn't working, what the standard calls a non-conformity, you don't just put a Band-Aid on it. You dig deep, find the root cause, and you fix it for good, making the whole system stronger over time.
Okay, so that's the framework in a nutshell. But how does a company know how well it's actually doing before they call in the official auditors? Well, this is where the gap analysis, or the scoring, comes into play. And here's the magic number, 85%. According to the readiness checklist, if a company hits 85% or higher on its own internal checkup, it's considered certification ready. It basically means they probably only have some minor things to fix, maybe a little bit of paperwork or one last training session before the big official audit.
So how do they get to that number? It's pretty straightforward. An internal auditor goes through every single requirement. If the company meets it completely, that's 100%. If they're, part way there, maybe they wrote a policy but haven't trained everyone on it yet, that's 50%. And if they haven't touched it at all, that's a 0. The final score is just the average of all those points. Now on the flip side, scoring below 65% is a major red flag. It points to major gaps in the system. It's a clear signal that the organization has a lot of work to do before it's even close to being ready. But really, this whole scoring process isn't about passing or failing. It's a roadmap that shows you exactly where you need to focus your efforts.
So, you've identified those gaps. Whether they're big ones or small ones, the very next step is to create a clear, actionable plan to get them fixed. And this is done through a really systematic process. First, you clearly identify what the problem is. Second, and this part is so important, you analyze the root cause. Why did this happen in the first place? It's not enough to just fix the symptom. Third, you define and then implement a real solution. And fourth, you follow up later to verify that the fix actually worked and the problem is gone for good.
Okay, let's zoom out for a second. Why would a company go through all of this effort? I mean, what's the real payoff here, beyond just getting a certificate to hang on the wall?
The benefits are so much bigger than that certificate. A well-run EMS genuinely improves a company's environmental performance while making sure it stays on the right side of laws and regulations. It can even unlock cost savings in new business. But maybe most importantly, it builds trust with customers, with investors, with the community. It sends this powerful message that the company is truly committed to doing the right thing. We really hope this guide has made the world of environmental certification a little less complicated. This breakdown was brought to you by Green Science by Zarq Ezaz. We're a channel that's all about making these complex topics in sustainability and environmental science easy for everyone to understand.
If you found this look into environmental systems useful and you want to explore more of the cool innovations that are shaping our sustainable future, definitely make sure you subscribe for more deep dives.
And we'll leave you with this one last thought. ISO 14001 is a huge, powerful system, but all change really starts small. So whether it's part of some big certified framework or not, what's one simple environmental action that your own workplace could start doing today? Thanks for watching.